Gray was a third-round pick of the San Francisco 49ers in 2022. He dealt with some injuries and tallied just one reception during his time in San Francisco. He was waived by the Niners in August and signed with the Eagles practice squad days later. Philadelphia is one of the top receiving duos in the NFL in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but there are some roster spots up for grabs lower on the depth chart. Gray will be competing with players like Anaya Smith, Avery Williams, and Terrace Marshall during training camp. Now, when I put together my Eagles mandatory minicamp winners and losers video, we talked about Danny Gray. When we were discussing some offseason winners for the Birds, we discussed Danny Gray and how the wide receiver camp battle is going to be very intriguing for the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 spots. As Tim McMahon has stated, Eagles have arguably the best wide receiver duo 1-2 punch in the NFL with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Together, they have been tremendous for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles organization since they paired up, starting with the 2022 season after that draft night trade where the Eagles just fleeced the Tennessee Titans led by Howie Roseman, bringing Brown in and then signing him to a contract extension. Jahan Datson, by all accounts, had a good spring. And so the top 3 receivers on this team are set in stone. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Datson. And wide receiver 3 is never going to put up a ton of numbers in this offense because you have Brown, you have Smitty, but the offense also runs through Saquon Barkley. The pass game also runs through Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts is going to carry the football from time to time. And so that wide receiver 3 position is one where, since Nick Sirianni has come here, the Eagles have struggled to find a legitimate player there. Remember in 2023, cycling through the likes of Julio Jones, Olamide Zaccheaus. In 2022, Zach Pascal was the wide receiver 3. He was rarely, if ever, targeted. But I do think Jahan Datson can bring this offense some value. We're talking about a former first-round pick who, at the end of the year, Week 18, when Brown and Smith were not playing, he was the wide receiver 1. He played well. Second to last week in the regular season against Dallas. When he got some more opportunities, he looked good within those opportunities. The first playoff touchdown for the Eagles in the wild card round to kick off that Super Bowl run. Jalen Hurts dropping back, buying time. And then he found Jahan Datson early in the game against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. That long ball died down the sideline to Jahan Datson. He was able to get open, and he burnt that corner to a crisp. So I think that Datson is a good player. People sleep on him because his Washington stint didn't go as planned as a former first-round pick. And then he came to the Eagles, and some people argue the Eagles gave up a little bit too much, but wide receiver 3 was in need, and he barely had any production last year, but he's a solid player. Usually, though, teams will hold on to 5 wide receivers. And so who will crack this 53 at wide receiver 4 and wide receiver 5? Danny Gray is a player who could do that. Went to JUCO, went to SMU, burst onto the scene with a massive game against TCU where he went crazy. He can take the top off of the defense, pop the lid off, and force the safety to shade over. When you have a vertical presence like that, it opens up a lot of routes underneath for other players to get open, to seize opportunities. And Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, they are really good wide receivers as far as crossers, in breaking routes. Danny Gray can help there. He can help spring free Dallas Goedert. It obviously helps out Saquon Barkley, but also with what McManus noted there, Danny Gray was getting open, across the middle. He has that to his game too. And there isn't a wide receiver on this roster who's capable of stretching the field, accelerating, and running a 4.33. And so he becomes interesting from that speed component, because if you add that on the field with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, you can utilize that weapon and that speed to your advantage. And Kevin Patullo is probably understanding of that already. And Gray was a former third-round pick by the Niners. His rookie year, he caught a long ball in the preseason from Trey Lance, and a lot of people thought that was going to be the future connection. He went on to have 1 catch for the Niners. Huge bust for that organization. little bit small, sometimes injury prone, and Kyle Shanahan notoriously hard on young wide receivers. So never cracked that roster, but pretty telling the Eagles' interest in him. Right after he was let go by San Francisco, Eagles were happy to scoop him up, place him on the practice squad, and he improved, it looks like, from last year to this year, making plays in the spring. When you are a speed demon like that, how do you play when the pads are on? How do you play when there's contact? Press man to man. When you get tackled in training camp and in the preseason. Because remember Quez Watkins? Quez Watkins was a spring training camp darling because he would just blow by everybody. But then once the games came around, that's when he struggled. Will the same happen to Danny Gray? Or will he become the player who the Niners thought he was maybe going to become when they took him in the third round? Another player to look out for is Terrace Marshall, a former second-round pick who runs 4.4 and is 6'2", 200 pounds. There is a world where Danny Gray and Terrace Marshall make this team over Aniyah Smith and Johnny Wilson. I don't care that the Eagles drafted them both in the 2024 draft. I want the best players. Where Avery Williams becomes interesting is that he started his career as a DB, and then he started to get reps with the Falcons at running back, inline tight end, wide receiver out wide, out of the slot, and became a really good return man. Does he have value on offense and special teams? If he does, that could give him the edge because he can help you with 2/3 as far as the phases go, offense and special teams. And shoot, has a history playing corner. So that is one of the underrated training camp battles that I'm looking out for once training camp comes around. As for some other players who ESPN mentioned as the surprise players across the NFC East, for the Commanders, defensive tackle Daron Payne. And it was John Keim, who covers the Commanders, who said this: Washington needs more from Payne this year. After recording 11.5 sacks in a contract year in 2022, he posted a combined 8 the past 2 years, but more than sack totals, he needs to be felt more in the pass rush. 2020 to 2022, he had 96 pass rush wins and a win rate of 11.6%. In the past 2 years, he has had 39 wins and a 7.6% win rate. Isn't in a contract year, but could be cut next offseason for $16 million in savings. Coach Dan Quinn said that he had a laser focus this spring. Daron Payne needs to play better for Washington. For the Cowboys, Todd Archer, who covers Dallas, listed Kaiir Elam as the player who was a surprise during the spring. The Cowboys acquired Elam in a trade from Buffalo after he was not able to solidify himself with the Bills. Cowboys had him highly rated when he came into the NFL, started just 12 games in 3 years with 2 picks, but he flashed on numerous occasions in OTAs and minicamp, had multiple interceptions and dropped 2 more. He's shown the ability to run with receivers. Maybe things change when the pads come on in training camp, but given the uncertainty the Cowboys have at corner with Trayvon Diggs and Siobhan Ravel, third-round pick this year, working back from knee surgeries, they need Elam to be a factor. Pretty sure he was a first-round pick. Let me check on that. Still only 24 years old. Yeah, first-round pick in 2022 by the Buffalo Bills out of Florida. 23rd overall. So he's been a little bit of a bust so far. And then for the Giants, safety Dane Belton. And it was Jordan Renan with the write-up here. Earlier this offseason, it appeared as if he was about to become an afterthought following the signing of Javon Holland. Think again. Been really good for us early, like he's had a really good spring. Defensive coordinator Shane Bowen said, we're finding ways to get him on the field, what he can do for us to help us. Making plays seemingly every practice in the spring, had 3 picks in the 5 workouts open to the media. Even if he's not a starter, it appears the 4th-round pick in 2022 will have a role as a third safety, and why not? When he's on the field, he has consistently created turnovers, and he's made plays. So, surprise player for Philadelphia. And then for those of you who are football nerds like me, other surprise players to keep tabs on for other teams inside the NFC East. I always crack up at comments when people are like, why are you talking about the NFC East, Chase? Well, because the Eagles play these teams 2 times a year, and it goes a long way in deciding their divisional hopes and playoff hopes. So again,
go ahead. I'll give a little. You have to read Fran's analysis. I can give you some of the top quarterback prospects because hey, you can look that up online anywhere. But to get Fran's analysis about what these guys do well, whether they might even go into the draft, you actually have to sign up for the deal and read the article. What do you make of the Arch Manning hype is big, and it's very interesting.
It's legit.
Look,
this guy's awesome.
I've seen a couple of the highlights. Now, normally they were against bad teams, but he's actually running away from defensive backs, which is pretty wild. I'm very intrigued to see this. For a guy who has that type of name and is one of the most hyped players, regardless of whether he's good or not, is also considered to be amazing and also is in the weird situation where he's this amazing player, but he sat for 2 years at a big program. Anyway, I'm very interested to see how that plays out. That's probably, obviously, look, the Eagles are set. They have a great quarterback room. They have an excellent starting quarterback. They appear to have a very good backup as well. Maybe, some people say the best backup ever.
Some don't.
Some don't. Some do, some don't. But I'm very excited to track the Arch era at Texas.
Yeah, I know Tyler's probably excited for next week when college football comes out, the college football video game comes out, and we can play with Arch Manning against Drew Hour, right?
Yeah. I will tell you this. I probably have not turned my PlayStation on in months at this point.
Fatherhood.
Yeah, between that and covering the Phillies, there's really not been a whole lot of time. But yes, I am super excited.
Yes.
I'm actually more excited at this point for college hoops when that game comes back.
That's 28 now?
Yeah, it's a couple years. But because I already have a college football back in my life, college hoops is the big one for me.
There you go.
That was when I was younger, college football, that would come out in June, I think. Those were the 2 games I would play, the 2 football games.
Who did you build?
Men.
Which program did you build?
Oh, a bunch of different ones. My cousin and I would play together, and we'd kind of swap, and we liked building bad programs into great ones. Or not bad programs, but so SMU was one.
Okay.
They were a little bit down after the old death penalty.
Yes.
Brought them back to prominence.
Stop paying their players.
Yes, exactly. Which you could do now.
Yes.
Idaho.
They were just ahead of their time.
Idaho was a big one. New Mexico State.
Vandals?
I enjoyed the Vandals because you could play inside.
Oh, okay.
The
yes.
Kibbe Dome was a big spot. Anyway, I always enjoyed playing college football because after a few years, once you got the Vandals to prominence, you were playing in the Pac-10.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of similar to what it's actually like now.
That's a good point. If you play Madden and you were Howie Roseman in Madden, maybe a move you would have tried to do was call Andrew Berry, which you can't do in Madden, but Browns GM Andrew Berry, for Myles Garrett. That was the number 2 on my list, was keep calling Browns GM Andrew Berry about Myles Garrett. The Browns insist they're not trading Garrett. I wrote, Roseman suggested that time is not right for the Eagles to pay a first-round pick and a big contract to a player. But I said this is the type of player that you move mountains to acquire. Myles Garrett was not being traded this offseason. They gave him a record-breaking deal. I understand why. I still think that if Howie could have found a way to land Myles Garrett, this is the type of player he would have wanted to land. But this was probably more wishful thinking than reality, so I can't actually hold this move against Howie.
Well, and the Eagles were linked by a lot of people
yes.
to, when Myles Garrett was sort of in limbo and he was asking for a trade and, you didn't know what was going to happen in Cleveland, a lot of people were like, the Eagles were at the top of the list, them, Washington. Yeah. So it made sense for them. I'm not sure it made sense I understand he's that level of player. I think we can debate on whether it made sense for the Eagles. What do you think about this? I know we're getting off topic here, but hey, it's Bobby Bonilla. It's July 1st.
It's true.
I don't think it made as much sense for the Browns. They're a rebuilding team.
Yeah.
And Myles Garrett is fantastic. I think, like you said, probably the best defensive player in the sport. Agree with all that, but they're not ready to win.
No, but he's the type of player who if you're in rebuilding mode, you try to trade him and get multiple first-round picks. I see what you mean there. It's just he's, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the NFL.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So when you have elite talent, you don't want to give him up, right? I mean, in football, it's not that hard to get good again. The Browns were in the playoffs 2 years ago, right? And they had a down year last year, but clearly that's a team that's rebuilding. So they are kind of in between.
That's true.
Yeah. The Browns could probably use Cam Jurgens.
Yes, they could.
But they will not get Cam Jurgens for a while. Number 3 on this list is sign Cam Jurgens to a contract extension. And this was a Howie Roseman move. So I said he should be a 4-year, $65 million deal. He signed 4 years, $68.
Nice.
Once again, I'm $3 million off. I feel as if, Howie's more generous throwing $3 million out than I am, apparently. But no, in all seriousness, is this a move that you're behind?
That was something you and Bo were bringing up back in October, November. Once you saw that Cam Jurgens was, in fact, a very good center, and I think we all believe that he was going to be very good, but it is crazy to think back to the conversations we were having at this time last year. There was questions about, is this offensive line still elite? And part of it was, okay, Cam Jurgens, he might be good. He might be good in the future, but taking over for Jason Kelce, who, even though he retired, was still playing at a super high level. I know Jason Kelce said that he was losing a few steps. Didn't really look like he was still an extremely effective player. Once Cam Jurgens proved, no, he's a very good player. That is the type of guy that the Eagles have locked up. So you guys were ahead of the curve on that one. It seemed like that was fait accompli.
So then the next one here is watch Milton Williams and Josh Sweat earn big contract elsewhere and collect compensatory picks. So it didn't take a rocket scientist to predict this one. I'm not a rocket scientist, so I was able to predict it. But what were your thoughts on this decision here? And would you have tried to keep Milton or Josh Sweat? Would you have made either one a priority over Zack Baun? Were you okay seeing homegrown pass rushers go out the door?
I mean, it's not, again, the Eagles, it really does go to show that their philosophy has changed recently, in that they sign the linebacker and they let the homegrown pass rushers go. It's very odd. Milton Williams, again, he was a very good player for the Eagles. He was super disruptive in the Super Bowl. Great story, homegrown player. That's a lot of Milton that the Patriots paid for. And for
a lot of Milton. I haven't heard it framed that way. That is a lot of
Milton Williams. I like Milton Williams, but it's a lot of Milton. So no, I think they made the right choice there in terms of prioritizing the guy that they really couldn't let go, because there's still Jalen Carter here. There's still Nolan Smith here. So I think they did the right thing there.
Yeah.
And Josh Sweat too. I mean, it seems like that's a nice end of Josh Sweat's story in Philadelphia, right? Where he, there was a little bit of friction about the contract and it wasn't always the smoothest ride, but he goes out as, one of the best players in the Super Bowl and gets paid by Arizona.
I give Josh credit, and longtime viewers know I have a soft spot for Josh Sweat. Although he hasn't responded to any of my texts, so I think he's moved on from me. But no, Sweat bet on himself last year, or in the sense he took that restructured deal, went into a contract year, and turned into a 4-year, $76 million deal. So a good work by Josh Sweat. So the next move here,
that computer feature didn't land a return text from him.
It did. Yeah. I mean, not once he left, right? Once he left, you said, hey, congratulations. I enjoyed getting to know you, enjoyed covering you. And it's kind of like when I first tried to meet my wife, right? I was just getting ghosted, right? So,
well, hopefully, like your wife, Josh Sweat comes back to you.
Yeah. Being facetious there, although that did happen. See what mekhi Becton's market is, but prepare to turn right guard to Tyler Steen with competition. The Eagles did see what mekhi Becton's market is, though I don't know what their appetite was to bring back mekhi Becton. Vince, our great GM here, kept thinking they were going to bring back mekhi. And mekhi, it was the type of thing where I don't think the Eagles were going to pay 5 offensive linemen that, a double, a $10+ million contracts, right? So they did let him leave, and it does seem as if they're turning the right guard competition over to Tyler Steen. Now, I thought there would be more competition I thought maybe Kenyon Green would push him a little more, and perhaps that's still to come.
But didn't seem like you got that indication.
Yeah,
in camp.
yeah. During the spring, that was not the case. So, were you okay with this, or would you want more certainty at right guard?
It's one of those things where I think it's fine. I think Tyler Steen, if he is your weak link on an offensive line with 4 other elite players, I think is perfectly fine. Now, I also think re-signing Mekhi Becton for, I believe it was $10 million. Was that the number it came in at? Right around there. I think that also was perfectly reasonable, and he earned that contract. I think the Chargers are probably going to do pretty well with that deal. It was one of those things where when you mention the entire group, that's where it really hit home. It's like, you're really going to pay 5 of these guys 8 figures? And it's like, no, I think it's okay to let them move.
I'm listening to what you're saying, but as I'm saying, I'm saying, man, who would I be more in trouble with about what I just said?
After lifting the Lombardi, the Philadelphia Eagles have seemingly chosen reinforcement over revision. The team's offseason reflects calibration, and their personnel strategy signals clarity. They probably want to preserve the interior, eliminate redundancy, and extend depth without causing financial inflation. The most telling move of this cycle is indeed the extension of Cam Jurgens. A 4-year agreement secures the offensive line's cadence. The coaching staff did not posture, but acted. Jurgens, efficient in reach blocks and disciplined in protections, now becomes a fixture alongside Lane Johnson. His communications sync with quarterback and guard stabilizes the core unit. On the other hand, linebacker Zack Baun re-signed for 3 years. His usage under Fangio doesn't require any reinvention. He plays gap-responsible, low-risk football, and that consistency matters. Next, Saquon Barkley received 2 years, valued slightly above market. It is not speculative, though. He complements Hurts in short area efficiency and provides load management value across a 17-game cycle. Another one is about Ben Van Sumeren. The player is now designated as a fullback, and notably, that label has context. He is not a traditional lead blocker. In actuality, his function is hybrid, which includes motion adjustment, special teams asset, and outlet checkdown. The Eagles logged just 14 fullback snaps in 2024. This year, projections expect that number to rise toward 100. Van Sumeren's blocking data, although limited, is all about kinetic intelligence, which include good read angles, steady pad level, and no wasted contact. Importantly, he has just recovered from a knee issue, but that has been measured thoroughly. Interestingly, 3 rotational edge rushers arrived this month, including Joshua Uche, Azeez Ojulari, and Patrick Johnson. Each was signed to short contracts, and none exceeds medium-tier guarantees. Uche brings interior stunt experience and third down value. Ojulari is pliable. He can bend without disengaging early. Likewise, Johnson has special teams reliability and can rotate without giving up on tempo. Historically, Fangio does not run pressure-heavy packages. His defenses prioritize spacing, lane discipline, and positional patience. Darius Slay is released, and CJ Gardner-Johnson is traded, and the secondary demands resolution. Adoree Jackson was signed to cover that margin. He's excellent in shallow zone tracking and break anticipation. Granted, he may not shadow top receivers, but he can neutralize wideouts who rely on timing over physicality. On the offensive side, Kylan Granson and Harrison Bryant were acquired to create redundancy behind Dallas Goedert. Their routes are compact, not vertical. Also, they function as possession targets in tight formations. Neither threatens to overextend a defense. Both, however, reduce risk in injury rotation scenarios. Another big update is Brandon Graham retired. His final season is symbolic, but it does not destabilize the unit. Bryce Huff, on the other hand, requested a trade. However, that request stemmed from schematic incompatibility, not locker room tension. He was moved to San Francisco, where his style fits better. Gardner Johnson expressed frustration post-trade, citing undervaluation. His departure opens space for younger players to contest roles without political weight. Rumors also persist around 2 names, Tyler Boyd and Asante Samuel Jr. Boyd would offer slot reliability and 3-wide coverage relief. His game is based on route sharpness and stem variation. He is not fast, granted, but at the same time, he is rarely late. Jahan Datson is still ascending, and given that scenario, Boyd would function as a route timing relief valve. The Eagles have cap space to pursue him, though no confirmation has come yet. Samuel Jr. remains unsigned. The Eagles are reportedly in the front-runner position. His man coverage traits are adequate, but the appeal lies in familiarity and rotational resilience. If signed, he would provide immediate competition in camp without requiring full snap load. Van Sumeren's usage rate in install sessions will indicate run game diversity. If his snap count holds past week 2 of preseason, expect a permanent reframe of short yardage personnel groups. In addition, watch how Uche and Ojulari handle Fangio's simulated pressure packages and monitor Bryant's red zone route tree. If he earns trust in contested space, Godart's usage can be preserved deeper into the season. Yes, Philadelphia's offseason has not chased optics. According to analysts, it has protected structure, clarified depth, and closed financial risk. This is more like a fine-tune, calibrated to workload, scheme, and roster life cycle. If that continues through camp, the Eagles may enter September with sharper answers. For more interesting analysis, subscribe and stay tuned.